We do have two more questions. The next one, we weren't sure what to do with, because as many of you and probably all of you are aware, the Beloit Board of Education approved contracts for the school's districts and administrators last week. However, we're leaving this in to see what kind of answers we get, because this is an ongoing type thing. So the next question is, to the panel here, what is your position on the recent changes made to school district administrator contracts? And I'll start with you, Jessica. Once again, hold the mic real close.
I feel the changes to the contracts were handled poorly. There seemed to be a lack of communication between the board and the administrators. What I saw from an outsider's view is that the board made the decision they wanted and gave our administrators 24 hours to respond. When they didn't get the response they wanted, they acted out. Sending letters of non-renewal seemed extreme. We're in the process of hiring a new superintendent, but we're willing to tell our administrators we are not renewing their contracts. What kind of message does that send to our staff, the parents, our community members, and any potential candidates for the superintendent role? I think it's important our staff know how much we value them in our district. They have an extremely difficult job, and if they feel appreciated, it will be better for them, our students, and ultimately it will make us a better district. We all know that very difficult cuts are going to be made, and people are nervous enough about this. Not feeling that you are a valued, respected employee only makes it worse. No one wants to work in that environment. I'm sure everyone has learned from this experience, even if we weren't directly involved, and we should move forward and rebuild the relationship between our board and administrators.
Thank you, Jessica. Pam.
Okay, this is going to sound like point counterpoint. Here's the insight. This was probably the best thing we accomplished since I've been on the school board. This was a much needed change. It was a step in the right direction, and if we are to function with less funds and still provide for our students, this was an absolutely necessary step. You see, an administrator has a contract for 2 years. And I've had classes in this, and it's something that I'm very much aware of, that if you don't either mutually agree on a new contract by January 31st, or not renew the contract and write another one, the administrator's contract automatically renews for another 2 years. Then, if we have to do budget cuts, which we know we're going to have to do, we have to actually buy out that 2-year contract. We didn't want to fire anybody. That was not the point. The point was to change the contract language so that seniority would not necessarily be the #1 issue when laying off, and so that we could break contracts with less time than a 2-year time period to buy out the contract. The district's attorneys developed this, and it came back to the board. Yes, it came back late. Do I blame the board for that? Absolutely not. We had administrators that were helping with this, and what we didn't know was that they were actually negotiating with other administrators, and no one told us. So yes, there was a lack of communication between the administration and the board. And that's no fault of ours. We had no idea that the communications were even happening. Now, the outcome is that all turned out well. All parties are satisfied with the result. A 90-day notice of layoff will be given, and seniority will no longer be the primary factor in the layoffs. We're now able to make administrative cuts as necessary, rather than only making teacher cuts. You always hear that we're administrator heavy. Well, one of the reasons is because it is so difficult to lay off an administrator, and it's very easy to lay off a teacher. Their contracts are that different. I think this is a step in the right direction and a very good thing that the board accomplished.
Thank you, Pam. We're going to move on to Missy. Missy,
I thought we were
take it
skipping
away.
this one.
No, they decided not to skip it.
Okay.
I should.
So I didn't bring my notes. However, I wasn't part of the closed meeting sessions that concluded that this was what needed to be done. I do think that the board had the right to ask for this legally. I also think the administrators had the right to protest this. At the time, I think that there was a lot of lack of communication and probably poor advice to the board that resulted in this. I also think that the administrators showed good faith to the students of Beloit by giving up their seniority clause. For the board to further ask them to give up a just clause and to lose their time of I think it would be 5 months before they could be let go was very unfair. And I'm glad it ended amicably, and I think, as one of the board members said, lessons were learned, and I think that's important.
Tia?
Thank you. The contract agreed upon between the board and the administrators is confidential, and therefore my response is based on the statements made at open board sessions and from the joint statements printed in the Daily News. At the outset of the negotiation, the Board of Education indicated that it wanted to rewrite the contracts of the administrators to eliminate seniority as the primary factor if layoffs became necessary in light of the projected budget. My understanding was that the executive team of administrators was willing to make this change. I believe that better communication could have led to a faster and more amicable agreement, but I am happy that a satisfactory agreement has now been reached. I am in favor of working in concert with administration to achieve our shared goals. I am disappointed the board did not have the foresight to see the effect their actions would have on the administrators and the district.
Amy?
All right, well, there's been a lot covered already. One of the things that's very hopeful now is that the board actually now has flexibility when eliminating positions. The budget is a moving target. It can be very, very hard to anticipate what the actual budget will end up being. The way the contracts were set up prior to the way they are now, we had 5 months that we had to anticipate ahead of time. What we have now is a 90-day clause, so that if we look at the budget and realize that we can't afford all the positions we have 90 days to eliminate that position. Prior to this, we had to anticipate 5 months ahead of time, which, given that we were anticipating a $4.4 million deficit, meant that we would probably have cut more positions than we would have had to just to be safe. In many ways, I feel like the new contracts are actually saving jobs.
Thank you.